Hola a todos, bienvenidos a esta sesión. Diego, si podemos irlo pausando, gracias. Bueno, bienvenidos a todos. Ya estamos 60 personas conectadas y esperando que lleguen algunos más, pero mientras tanto vamos a ir haciendo nuestra presentación. Bienvenidos a Historias Reales de Agilidad, un nuevo evento que estamos haciendo de la mano de IC Agile, que ya nos va a contar Susana quiénes son y por qué estamos aquí, para traer a Latinoamérica historias reales de agilidad. Hemos traído para ustedes el día de hoy una historia apasionante de cómo lograr una transformación ágil. Vamos a hablar de los aprendizajes, vamos a hablar de los errores, vamos a hablar de los éxitos que ha logrado esta organización de la voz de Ahmed Sidky, de modo tal que nuestro propósito es empezar a conectar a Latinoamérica con un concepto que es Business Agility. Sabemos que muchas empresas y muchas organizaciones están ya trabajando en proyectos ágiles, están implementando agilidad, pero queremos también empezar a llevar esta sesión hacia el Business Agility, que Historias Reales de Agilidad nos dé una mirada diferente de lo que la agilidad puede alcanzar en cada organización. Por eso estamos acá y doy la bienvenida a Ahmed, doy la bienvenida a Susana. Muchas gracias por haber hecho parte de este evento y ya cuéntanos, Susana, qué más viene y esto cómo viene también.
Buenísimo, muchas gracias, Sandra. Estamos súper contentos de estar aquí, muy emocionados de compartir estas historias reales. El evento, más que todo, es para un poco traer realidad en el concepto de Business Agility, de agilidad empresarial. Y de veras que el poder compartir estas historias ayuda mucho en entender y contextualizar lo que se ha aprendido en otras experiencias. Y con eso estamos muy contentos de introducir a Ahmed, básicamente liderando la agilidad empresarial en Riot Games, y él estaría compartiendo su historia y estamos esperando muchos otros panelistas para que puedan también compartir esas historias para seguir esta jornada con todos ustedes. So, Ahmed.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So it's an honor to be here. I wish I can speak your native language so I can be more expressive, but we'll go with the constraints that we have. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. Let's see if I can successfully do that. Okay, all right. So I'll tell you a story about basically the business agility here. This is the story from Riot Games. And it's the story of KDA, a fictional band that topped real world charts. But before we start that, what I'd like to do is just talk to you about agility in general. And when the word agility comes, what picture comes in your head? I think that's a very important question to think about, because pictures form how we think about things and form our mental models. And so I'll show you a quick video. And I thought about this question a lot. What picture comes to my head when I think about agility? And I want to show you a video from sort of a sport called parkour. And parkour comes from the sort of military obstacle course training. And as you can see, it's no barriers. It's whatever comes their way, they're going to overcome it. They'll jump over everything, anything. They will fall, get up. But it's like nothing will stop them from delivering value. And that's how I see Agile. I see it as nothing can stop us, no constraints, no barriers to deliver value. But why? Why do we need this much agility? Why do we need business agility or Agile in general? This crystallized for me when I saw the work of Steve Denning in the Copernican Revolution. And the Copernican Revolution is a long story in history that I won't go over right now, but to remind all of us, it is the shift, the paradigm shift from people thinking that the Earth was the center of the solar system and the sun and all the other planets were revolving around it, to the opposite, where no, it's actually the sun is the center of the solar system and the Earth revolves around it. Now, this had so many implications to society, to the church, to the people's beliefs. It took over 300 years for people to change this mindset. And so similarly, we're going through a Copernican revolution, but in business today. And this Copernican revolution in business says we're shifting from the company being sort of the center where I'm trying to attract customers to me, right? To a different model where no, the customer is the center and companies are in service of the customer. Now, this may seem very simple, but actually it has massive, massive implications. For many companies, it's about their product. It's about their profitability, their market share. It's about me as a company, and then I'm bringing in customers so that I can grow my company and I can win my revenue, my profits, whatever it is. The shift here is no, I as a company exist to fight on behalf of an underserved customer. I exist to fight on behalf of an underserved customer. And to understand, and this is really important, that I'm not the only one fighting. If I'm not fighting hard enough, there are other companies that are fighting even harder on behalf of that underserved customer. And this is the story of Riot Games. Riot Games started when Mark and Brandon, the two founders of Riot Games, felt that, you know what? Gamers, players are underserved. And the big gaming companies are not actually servicing them the right way. What they're doing is they're focusing more on themselves, on the product, but not on the gamer experience. And so they said, we're going to start a company. And from day one, the mission was we aspire to be the most player-focused game company in the world. But look at the middle here, player-focused game company. It's all about that. And so we live this every day. And many companies say player first or audience first or customer first. But it's really, really hard to live this. This equation we use every day at Riot. Player is more important, greater than Riot. And when we think about that, when we have a trade-off, when we have a choice between this is good for the player or it's good for the company, we pick what's good for the player. Why? It's not even a conversation. Why? Because our mission is to be the most player-focused game company in the world. So when these hard trade-offs come, it really isn't a trade-off. It's this is in service of the player, we will do it, right? And this is the hard part because, like I said, many companies say it's about the customer, it's about the customer, it's about the customer. But when it comes to these trade-offs, these decisions, these moments of truth, is it about the company profitability? Is it about shareholders? What are we really doing here? And this is about identity and culture. This is who we are as a company. We are a player-focused company, right? It's our culture, it's our DNA. But I didn't tell you why we need parkour. Why do we need agility? I get I'm customer-centric, but why do I need agility? Well, here's the interesting thing. If you agree with me that you're trying, your identity, your core here is to be player-centric, is to be in service of the player or of your customer, you have to also acknowledge the fact that the customer is in a constant state of motion and change. And I mean, look at us right now. We're giving a webinar on Zoom where I could have been there physically. We could have had a gathering, and there's social change. COVID has actually really emphasized this point for many people. It's like, you think that things are stable. They're never stable. There's market changes, social changes, behavioral changes, technological changes. There's changes all the time. And so that is directly affecting your customer. And so if your customer is in a constant state of motion, then you need to be agile to service your customer. To be customer centric, you actually need to be agile. And this is what I want to really emphasize here. When we talk about business agility, so agile, not just in the team sense or in the development team sense, but agility, flexibility, nimbleness, that video of parkour, how we move without constraints, is it in service of the company or is it in service of the customer? Because I have met many companies who say, we want to be agile because our competition is doing this, or because our profitability is this, or because we need to gain more market share, or time to market, or efficiency. That's not bad, but I want you to recognize that's in service of the company. What I'm here to tell you is this journey of business agility starts, and at the heart of it really is business agility. Why? And who are you? It's in service of the customer. So much so that this is so core to us that our purpose, the why we exist at Riot, is to make it better to be a player. We want to serve the customer so much, our players so much, that we want to make it better for them to be a player. All right. So that was my introduction. And I want to dive into real world stories. And I'm going to tell you a story from 2018. And to set the scene here, this is about our world championships for League of Legends. Now, for those who do not know Riot Games, could be a lot of you, could be few, but Riot Games has one of the largest games in the world called League of Legends. League of Legends, I want you to think of it more like a sport, what we call esports. So it's 5 against 5, 5 people playing against 5 people. And basically, again, like a sport, right? There are professional teams, there's professional leagues, and what we have is a world championship, just like, you know, the FIFA World Cup, if you may. So this story is from the opening ceremony of our 2018 World Championships. Now, I'm going to give you a little more context. I'm going to start with a short video just to give you a little more context about what is esports. So let's watch that, and then I'll tell you more about how our story starts.
Seen as the pinnacle of competition, it is the aspirational goal of every professional league player. To create a setting worthy of this prestige, championships are held in the world's most iconic arenas. Past events have sold out venues like the Mercedes-Benz Arena in Berlin, the Los Angeles Staples Center, and the Beijing National Stadium. This international event is broadcast in 19 different languages, across more than a dozen streaming platforms and television stations. Viewership has continued to grow through 2018, with the last tournament peaking at 99.6 million unique viewers.
We have done it. Everyone is seated. We have a full house.
Down, Brox is away. IG are on the Nexus. The LPL has never won before, but that will change today. The Crownless are finally king.
Okay, so hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea of the magnitude of this. All right, so here's where our story starts. We had this opportunity to delight players, and that's how I'd like to think about this. We could have chosen not to do any of this, but we had an opportunity. The opportunity was we were talking about world championships in 2018. We had decided that this is going to be in Korea. And what we want to do is something that is culturally relevant there. So we thought of K-pop, right? But also we have this challenge of, you know, this is a live performance. It's what we have to present is something worthy of an arena here. And we also had this experience in augmented reality from the year before that, where we experimented with bringing a dragon into the bird's nest in China for the opening ceremony. I'll show you a quick clip of that because I'll reference it later. So let me show you. All right, so let's go back to the story here. So that was the setting of the scene, right? On the other hand, we had Toa. Toa Dunn is a music producer at Riot Games, and he had this idea that was brewing in his head of, what if we did like an American Idol? I'm guessing you guys have something like American Idol. But what if we did this American Idol-like competition using the champions inside the game, right? And have them compete and like sing and all that. But also what's important here is Toa had been really involved with some of our music video productions, our albums we had, music albums, and artist relations like Imagine Dragon. Because again, all of that comes into the mix when we think about what opportunity did we want to do. So here's the idea that came up. I want you to imagine here, we are around 8 months from the opening ceremony, and we come up with this idea. What if? What if we create a virtual band, a fictitious band from the champions in our game, and we have them perform live on the stage using augmented reality. They will produce a hit single, and we will release it simultaneously through a music video. So that's what we did. We created KDA, Pop Stars, which is a band from 4 of our champions in our game. And we had, at the opening ceremony, them debut their hit single. And I'll actually show you a clip from what we did.
Running it, I'm so cold. When I move that way, you gon' be so blown. I'm the realest in the game. Said I'm on fire with the blade. You're about to hit my lane, ringing in your head like whoa. So keep your eyes on me now. 무엇을 보던 좋아할 거야. So tough, let's get it, show you up. Can you feel the rush now? Ain't nobody bringing us down, 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 down. Think we try, but we gonna wear the crown. You could go another round.
So the impact it had was 100 million views in the first 4 weeks. It hit #1 on the Billboard for World Digital Songs. It hit #1 on iTunes K-pop. It was a huge success. If KDA was a real band, this would be considered the most successful debut for a K-pop group in YouTube history. All right. Now, remember, a couple of important things here. This whole project was not on our 2-year roadmap, or it wasn't planned for. This was an idea that came up, right? And we said, wouldn't it be cool if we could do this to delight our players? And we said, yes. And this is where agility comes in. It's the ability to seize these opportunities for the delight of the customer. And you actually have enough of that flexibility in the organization to pull it off. So what was important for us was none of these numbers. What was important for us was, did it create delight? Did it surprise and amaze our players? And let me show you, because that's the real KPI. That's the real measure of success for us. None of this. The real measure of success is how people reacted to it. Because remember, That's why we did it. Because why? Because we aim to be the most player-focused game company in the world. So let me show you a clip from how our players reacted to this, because that's really our measure of success.
And I love that character right now. Am I becoming a furry?
Can you feel the rush now? Ain't nobody bringing us down, 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 down. They could try, but we gonna wear the crown. You could go another round, 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 round. Wish you luck, but
Hey, this shit is hot! Bro!
till we get it, we go hard. We so in it, we pop stars.
I'm not something cool's gonna happen. I'm gonna go.
You ready for this?
Let's go!
See, 언제든지 내 모습에
Get out.
She's
bomb.
평평 네가 뭘 알아 견딜 수 없어 원해도 원하는 게 얼굴에 보여 I'm troubling you running it I'm so cold.
Now that's
Oh my god, this is like so much swag, right? Wow!
So I hope you guys can see this is why all this is worth it, because that joy on players' faces. So that was sort of the first part of the presentation. The next part, I really want to take you behind the scenes. So how did we pull this off? And I want to tell you something. I wish there was an easy way to deploy a framework or a model or bring in a consultant and tell them, make us agile. Nah, there isn't, right? The reality is, and I use the metaphor of sports. It's a grind. It's a lot of work. In sports, a grind is when you wake up every day and you work out, and even when you don't want to, you still do it. And it's hard, and it's not what other people are doing. It's that grind. And so when we look at the world of sports, I think business agility is very like that. It's not something you have or don't have. So you're agile, yes, you're agile, no. It's like physical performance and sports performance. You have more of it, right? And the more you actually become a professional athlete and you work out more, the more you develop that performance, right? But it requires discipline. It requires mastery. It requires a lot of effort and perseverance, but it's open to everyone, right? So anyone can do it with enough effort, perseverance, discipline, but it is a journey. And so I want you to sort of think about this. The journey to business agility is a grind, is this hard journey, day in and day out, but it's driven by an identity. That identity is what we talked about at the beginning. It's that customer-centric identity. Why do you exist? Is it in service of the customer, right? So it's driven by this identity, because if it's driven by profits or, whatever, I'll tell you this, it's not worth the journey. It's a really hard journey. That's very different when we talk about an athlete who their identity is, I'm an athlete, so I work out, I eat healthy, I do this, versus someone who's like, I'll work out a little bit, right? I'll take care of my customer a little bit. But no, this is about identity. And once you understand that identity, that mindset, then it requires persistent effort. It takes a long period of time, and it requires this growth mindset. And I'll talk about each one of these in a minute. The important thing is it has no shortcuts, right? You cannot shortcut this. There's ways that you can get better at it quicker, but that's by working out more, but it has no shortcuts. And similarly to, again, the world of sports, if I'm trying to train to do something big, I need to really start to understand me, my body, right? All the different muscle groups. Where am I strong? Where am I weak? What do I need to focus on? How do I work these out? Because this body is all interconnected. So are organizations. Organizations, similarly, if they're going to pursue this journey of business agility so that they can surprise and delight and seize opportunities to win with their customers, guess what? You need to understand what are the muscles you need to work out? Where are you strong? Where are you not strong? And so I like to use this model from the Business Agility Institute, and you can find the URL here. But I look at this as the different muscle groups. These are all the different muscle groups that we need to work on to be agile as an organization. All right. Now, let's look at what they are. So you have one domain or one area, it's about leadership. One is about individuals and one about operations. And then right around the center here, you have the core. Just like in your body, I don't know what you call the core, but you have your core muscles. And at the core here is this customer-centric mindset. So we talked about that already. But the rest of these three elements, the workforce, the partners, and the board, the common theme here is about relational, not transactional interactions. What do I mean by that? Your relationship as an organization with your workforce, with the people who work for you, can be based on trust and a relationship, or can be based on transactions, meaning I will tell you what to do, you work it, and that's it. Right? Same thing with the board and the partners. So let's take each of these one by one. And what I'll do is try to relate it also to the KDA story, so you can see how these elements come together. So when it comes to the workforce, for an organization to truly be agile, and by what I mean there is, again, it's customer-centric. It's able to move, to take advantage of opportunities for the customer's sake and adapt based on different circumstances. You have to have a mission-aligned, passionate workforce. If your workforce, if the people that work in your company don't care about the customer, then it's almost impossible for the organization to be customer-centric because they don't care. And so every interaction with them will be transactional. This, that, this, that. It's not based on love and trust, right? So they need to care. So at Riot, KDA would not have been possible except that we, for years, have been focused on hiring people that are passionate about gaming and gamers. Why? Because we understand that from day one, we aspire to be the most player-focused game company in the world. So we have to hire people that care about that mission, or else we won't be able to fulfill that mission. And so this is really an invitation to think about what your mission is as an organization, and do we have people that care about our customer and about our mission? And I mean care, truly care, not transactionally care, but based on a relationship of trust. Now, you may be thinking, wait a minute, but I don't have that. How can I change that overnight? You can't change it overnight, right? But it's a journey that starts, right? Remember, it's a long journey, but you got to start somewhere. Just like, again, your core muscles. If you don't have strong core muscles, or you have a belly like me, I won't have six packs tomorrow. It's a journey, and I need to take it step by step by step by step, but I have to start sometime and somewhere. The board. The board is another really, really important aspect of customer centricity. Why? Because if your board and your C-suite, your upper leadership, don't have a customer focus together, then there will be a tension and a transaction of, listen, we're hiring you as a CEO. I need you to deliver on these results and these dividends, versus taking a customer focus and say, we need to build these relationships with our customers. We need these long-term bets, not short-term bets. I know that at Riot, we have worked very, very hard to build really good relationships with our C-suite, between the C-suite and our board. Why? So that we can take bets, not just like KDA, but like esports in general, right? Esports in general, wasn't making a lot of money for us. Actually, it was a lost leader. It was not making any money. It was actually a non-sustainable business. But the board didn't say, wait a minute, after 2 years, let's shut this down. Why are we doing this? No, they understood that we want to make it better to be a player. And so we're willing to take these long-term bets. And that's where the something like KDA could come to existence, because we were able to take these long-term bets. Number 3, partnerships. Anywhere in your value stream, any company almost will not be able to do everything. You will rely on partners, whether that be outsourcing, partners, whatever it is. Your relationship with your partners, almost by default, is usually transactional. We'll tell you what to do, you go do it for us. All right? Now, interestingly, if you want to be agile as an organization, if you want to be customer-centric, you have to move away from this way of thinking. Why? Because it won't work. Because part of your value stream will become transactional. For us, for example, with KDA, we invested so much time and effort with our animation partner. Why? Because we couldn't pull something like KDA out without them working with us, co-creating with us. Not just that, but the artists, the music artists themselves, we built long-term relationships with them. Why? Because now they can co-create with us. We're thinking together. They didn't tell us, tell me what you want and we'll do it for you. There was no way we could have pulled off KDA like that. But it was more like, okay, we understand you. We've built trust between us. Now let's think together. Let's co-create together. And that is what made KDA possible. I can tell you right now, there was no way we could have delivered KDA without having partnerships that truly were built on a relationship of trust, not just a contract and a transaction between us. Now, I want to pause here for a second. Some of you are thinking like, but wait, I have to start with a contract. Yeah, start with a contract. That's fine. Right? But once you find the right partner, don't be restricted by the contract. You have to shift the way you engage with that partner. Because again, you may try many partners till you find the trusted partner. But once you find them, then trust them. And don't work with them the same way, the transactional way you work with some of your other vendors or partners. Okay. So these are really hard muscles. That's why I wanted to start with them. Your workforce, your board, your partnerships, but they're actually core to actually being able to provide a customer-centric experience and be customer-centric as a company. Let's move on beyond the core, and we'll start with leadership. All right, so we have 3 things in leadership: people management, one team, and strategic agility. We'll start with people management. But what I want to say about people management first is, you may think, wait a minute, leadership, what is people management? Like agile and strategy and leadership, why people management? Here's the most important thing. People, humans, are the most important asset of your company. Yeah, I know all companies say that, but here's why from a business agility perspective. Because they are the most agile part of your entire system. There is no amount of systems, processes, strategies that you can put in place to be agile equal to investing in making people agile. That's it. If you invest in making your people change their mindset, build their capability, and help them really understand what agility is about, that's the most important thing. So your job as a leader to build business agility is then to unlock the potential of these people. So leaders need to focus on hiring and developing people that are mission aligned, as we said, but that have a strong fit for future potential. Let me explain here. A lot of people hire for a role, meaning I have a role, it's in a box, and I want to hire someone just for that role. There is no way we could have done KDA if all the people we hired at Riot were fixed and fit into a role. We hire people that have passion and that have what we call mission alignment and future fit. We don't know what we're going to be doing in the future. We don't know, because there will be, again, agility here. There will be these opportunities that come to play, and we can't box those in. So going back to our story here, Toa, for example, is a music producer, right? But through good leadership, he was empowered. He was supported to bring his best self to the company. I remember Toa coming to me and pitching me on this idea, right? And I helped him, like, okay, we need to go talk to these people. We need to talk to these people. Let's talk about this. But it's a great idea. What if we tweak this? We tweak that, right? So having leaders that can truly understand, look into the future, not hire for our box, hire for mission alignment and passion, and then, most importantly, manage people in a way that creates this empowerment and passion and gets the best out of them. That is the most important part of a leader in an agile organization. Because if you do that, then you've enabled the agility through people of your entire organization. All right, let's move on. People management. Number 2, one team. This is so important. The one team mindset at the highest level of leadership is essential to making your organization agile. Leaders cannot focus on building their own kingdoms. And I think you know what I mean. I've seen a lot of leaders at senior levels. All they're focused about are their goals, their targets, their organization, their kingdoms or their silos. But rather, leaders need to build a culture that bring groups together to pursue opportunities for customer delight. Most big opportunities for you to delight your customer won't be isolated to one part of the organization. It will be an experience that the entire organization needs to do together. But if leaders at the top, starting from your CEO, right, at the top, do not promote this one team mindset, then everything will be siloed and dysfunctional. And agility will be in pockets. You as an entire organization will not be able to move in that fluid, flexible way to seize opportunities for the customer. All right, let's move on. Strategic agility. What is that? So as we define strategies, right? So leaders define strategies, they define North Star, they provide guidance, et cetera, et cetera. Number 1, the strategy needs to be clear. I will emphasize that again. The strategy needs to be clear. You need to be able to ask anyone in an organization, what is our strategy? And people should be able to answer. What are our bets? What are our goals? Why? Because if people understand that at the core, then they will be empowered. Again, if you hire the right people that are passionate, they are empowered to identify new opportunities that actually get towards those goals. But that also requires something, that we articulate the strategy in a way that is not too defined, meaning you're not telling people what to do. You're actually defining what we call outcomes. So output is a thing that we produce. An outcome is a behavior that we want to see. And agile strategies or strategic agility are strategies based on outcomes and impacts. Why? Because the way the organization operates then is this beautiful mix of top down and bottom up. An agile organization is not only top down or only bottom up, it's both. And KDA would have only happened if because we had this in our organization. Let me give you an example. The empowered team, back to Toa as an example, and his team, they knew that one of our big strategies is to create delight for our customers. Number 2, they understood that we wanted to do a big event for Korea. They thought of an idea, right? So they were empowered to provide ideas, vision, etc. But once we agree, and here's the important part, once we agree that, okay, we're going to do KDA, that requires top down. Why? Because now we have to align the organization towards that goal. It's not going to be up to Toa and his team to get all the different departments and business units working together so we can produce this. That's the balance of top down, bottom up. So we provide strategy, they provide ideas. We provide support, they provide execution. It's a constant loop of top down, bottom up, top down. And that's what strategic agility is. All right. I'm moving quickly through these so we can have more time for Q&A, but I wanted just to give you a glimpse of what are all the different muscles that come into the picture to pull something like KDA off. All right, let's move on to operations here. So we'll start with this enterprise agility. Enterprise agility, it's a term that can be used for different things. What we mean by it here is the rest of the enterprise, HR, legal, finance, right? In many companies, those parts of the organization are focused on protecting, governing the organization. So much so that they actually sometimes prevent ideas from becoming a reality. Why? Because it's not in the budget. Or there is, nope, you did not submit the idea for that next time. Or, you know what, people need to be in these boxes and we can't hire people that aren't, for whatever it is. Whatever it is. But in an agile organization, the governance frameworks, the enterprise, the back office should enable us to provide value to our customers, not hinder or stifle us. I'll give you an example with KDA. For KDA to be true, we had to sign 23 different contracts with music production companies, with labels, with records, with artists, etc. Legal in any organization could have made that so hard that, you know what, the project isn't even worth it. Finance, another example. KDA was not in our budget. We didn't have a budget for KDA. We had an idea, and the budgets were way before that. And so easily, finance could have said, wait a minute, KDA is not in budget. We'll do it next year because right now we don't have the money for it. Or no, they were actually like, you know what? This is going to provide value to our players. Let's figure out, let's work with the development teams here to figure out how to make this happen. And they were the ones finding solutions for us, not us telling them solutions so we can get it done. All right. So that's enterprise agility. 2, process agility. This is what maybe a lot of people on this call are familiar with. This is adapting the operation, inspecting and adapting, right? So we can create value to our customer, because throughout the life cycle of creating something, we have different needs and different ways of providing value. This is your typical work in iterations, you know, do retrospectives, understand what is working, what is not working, so that you can create value for your customers. That's process agility. Then we have the last one in operations, structural agility. Structural agility is a couple of things. One, it's related back to that one team mindset that we talked about, right? So for example, with KDA, when KDA came about, we actually had to bring together different parts of the organization to create a team to pull off KDA. Now, we didn't change the org structure, but structural agility means that we can create these coalitions. We can create new structures to bring them about and dismantle them when needed so that we can actually embrace new opportunities without disruption, right? So if your structure is so rigid that when I have an idea, I have to actually change the org structure, or there's no way to execute the idea, then we can't have business agility, because the structure, and by the way, structure is really important, but it needs to be flexible enough to either reorganize or to create coalitions necessary to embrace these opportunities. This is very hard, I'll admit. Like with KDA, I don't know how you'll translate this, but it was called the coalition of the unwilling. This is one of the areas where we struggled at. Why? Because for years, Riot was built around an entrepreneurial mindset where every division was almost like its separate little company. So when something like KDA comes about where we have to work across the board together, That's very, very hard because it's not part of our habits. Now, we're continuing to work on it because we believe that's the way forward and that's the way to win for players. But I'll tell you, KDA being one of our first experiences that we had to come together, very, very, very hard, very hard. But structural agility is important. Again, back to the muscle example, those were one of our muscles that are more weak, and we had to work on it a bit more. All right, let's move on here. Individuals, our last domain, our last sort of muscle group. And with that, I want to talk about growth mindset. The first thing here. So what is growth mindset? Growth mindset is this belief in our head, right, that challenges and failures actually help me grow because I can get better at doing things. Challenges, failures, feedback is all good because I can actually get better at things. It's not that I'm good at it or not good at it. So agility requires people that are open to learning by doing and trying things, experimentation. You come to Riot and things are always an experiment, right? We're trying new things out. But that requires us to be comfortable with that ambiguity, making decisions when we don't have all the answers, and no fear of failure. Now, that's not an invitation to go and fail, but no fear of trying new things. And some things are going to win, some things are not going to win. Very closely related to that is craft excellence. So with craft excellence, what that is basically, how do I articulate this? It's the ability to do things. So when we thought about KDA, if we hadn't been experimenting and trying things and learning new things, right, we could have never in 8 months pulled off an augmented reality scene on a live stage. We couldn't have done that, right? But because, remember the dragon? The year before that, we had experimented with the dragon, so we were able to take those learnings and apply them. So what craft excellence means is that we actually have the time and space and enable people to learn, not because just we have a task at hand, but remember, new opportunities, when they present themselves, we have to know how to execute them, right? Or else we may not be able to execute them. That's where craft excellence and investing in craft and learning coupled with the growth mindset really come together. Let me give you an example related to KDA here. So as any game, we have music in the game, right? So one day we said, you know what? Our music is really good. We're introducing a new champion. What if we do a music video? See here? So the craft excellence comes in, is like, okay, we need to learn how to make music videos. But also the growth mindset comes in, is like, we've never done it before, but okay, let's try it. Let's see what happens, right? So we created the music video, first music video. And then we're like, oh, wow, that was great. What if we do a music album? Again, craft, right? So how do we actually publish music? How do we engage with different artists, et cetera, right? And then we moved from that to live performances. Okay, well, now we have to develop a new craft, right? How do we sign Imagine? How do we manage artists? How do we create, big arena-worthy performances? How do we do all these? Again, in each one of these steps, it's let's try something new. We're not afraid to learn, and let's develop that craft. And it was only through those things coming together that we had all the necessary ingredients to like, let's do KDA. Let's do KDA. This took years. This took years, team. All right. And because it took years, that's why I'm bringing it up here, because sometimes we forget about these kind of investments in the growth mindset or craft excellence. And then when an opportunity comes, we're like, oh, we don't know how to do that. There's no way we can pull it off in time. Yeah, but if we had invested earlier, maybe we would have had that growth mindset, that agility, that culture of experimentation and learning. Last item we'll talk about, and I'll bring back Toa here, is ownership and accountability. agility requires a deep sense of ownership and accountability so that individuals that are close to the work, right, can actually make decisions and adapt. Toa is a great example. His role actually had nothing to do with KDA and this whole thing, but he had this sense of ownership. And then he had accountability to actually work this and make KDA a reality. And this is something you will invest a lot of time and effort working with your individuals in the organization. So anyway, as we wrap up here, I just wanted to zoom back out here and say, okay, we have these different muscle groups, right? The core, we have, let me close this. I don't know what's happening here. So we have the core, we have leadership, we have individuals, we have operations. All of these, and I hope you saw from the examples of KDA, are not things that you develop like this. These are things you invest in, and it takes time. And that brings me back to what we were talking about earlier, that really, when you think about it, the journey to business agility is a grind, is this constant effort that we need to put. And it's driven, and it's so worth it. And you'll want to do it if you have that identity of customer centricity. But it requires persistent effort. Every one of these examples, KDA did not happen in 8 months like people think. It took 10 years of us building agility in the organization from day one so that we could pull off something like KDA in 8 months. So it requires persistent effort, day in, day out. I would actually say the effort is nonstop because it's just part of who you are. We will continue to experiment and grow and try new things, and it will take time to build a workforce that is passionate and mission aligned, to build growth mindset, to build the one team leadership mindset, to build agile strategies, to manage people the right way, to build an enterprise where legal and HR, all of these take time. But at the heart of it is this mindset that, you know what, we can make it happen. We can do it. It just requires effort. We're going to fail and learn and grow. And don't try to find a shortcut, right? It's common for people to overemphasize the importance of frameworks. Don't. You have to go through the learning yourself, right? Agile is not a project or a change project. Over the next 6 months, we'll become agile. No, right? It's an identity shift. It's a mindset shift, but it's so, so worth it. And that's the story of KDA. And that's the story, more importantly, of the years and years of grind, of effort that we put in to make Riot able to pivot and be agile so it can delight its players and seize opportunities that otherwise we couldn't have executed on. So thank you so much. And let's have some questions.
Claro que sí. Hola, Ahmed, qué buena charla, muchísimas gracias, qué buena historia. De verdad que nos hemos entretenido y aprendido un montón. Invitamos a todos los participantes a poner sus preguntas, recuerden, en la sección de preguntas y respuestas, dado que ahí es mucho más fácil hacerles el tracking y poder ir dándoles respuestas a cada una de ellas. ¿Ok? Entonces vamos a dar inicio con las preguntas. Ahmed.
Yes, let's go. I just can't understand the questions because they're...
Yo las voy a leer y Cristian, nuestro intérprete, te las hará en inglés para que sean muy claras para ti.
Of course.
Primera pregunta de Jorman Chamorro. ¿Cómo resuelven las tensiones cuando las cosas no salen como quieren? ¿Qué hace que su modelo operativo, alineado y enfocado en el propósito, funcione conociendo la diversidad de personas y entendiendo que no siempre las cosas salen como deseamos?
So I think I understand the question. So how do we stay true to this mission when we have over 3,000 people, different personalities? How do we stay true to that? Is that Did I get that correct? I think. Yeah. Okay, great. It's hard. It's very, very hard. And that goes back to one of my friends is a bodybuilder, right? And when you look at him, it's like, how did you do that? It's hard. It's a lot of work, right? And so similarly, when you look, it's easy to look at Riot today and say, how do you guys do this? I can tell you, like, I've been there for 6 years now. It is very hard because you have, and I'll tell you this, one senior leader who is misaligned with purpose is so dangerous to the organization, right? I've been through my fair shares where we had senior leaders that were misaligned, and they took part of the organization in a different direction, and it had such a negative impact. But it really, I'll give it to the leadership and the senior leaders at Riot. All of us have been working very, very hard to align, talk to people, coach people, and it's constant discussion. I mean, we joke that alignment is a bad word at Riot because we do so much of it, right? But it's true. I mean, you're right. We have so many people coming in and out of the organization. It's really easy to lose sight of mission. But I'll tell you this. We have what we call the 5 bold steps, right? So each sort of strategic milestone we boil them down to 5 things. So, and we have our mission and we have our vision. Those things are repeated almost always, right? So like any meeting we have, any big meeting or any big gathering, we repeat those. Why? Because you cannot say them enough times. That's how you do it. There's no magic wand. It's just people are people, and I love people, but it's hard work.
Gracias, Ahmed.
Gracias, Susana.
Buenísimo. Bueno, yo voy a seguir hablando en español y dejo que Cristian traduzca. Pero la segunda pregunta es, ¿cuáles son las métricas válidas para medir el impacto de una transformación ágil en las organizaciones en 2 vías, cliente externo y cliente interno?
Se ha caído Ahmed.
Se ha caído Ahmed. Ese vuelve.
Ok. ¿Qué dirías tú, Susana? ¿Cuáles serían esas métricas? ¡Ay, aquí está!
Buenísimo. Ahmed, are you there?
I'm here, yeah. I'm here.
Okay.
Did you get the question?
Yeah, the metrics? Yes. Okay. All right. We're agile here, right? We're all agile. Okay.
Sí.
So the metrics of a transformation depend on what are you trying to change, right? So let's go back to our muscle groups, right? The different domains that we were talking about. What is the biggest part of your organization that you need to shift, right? You may be customer centric already. Great, done, right? But do you have a one team mindset? Is your leadership focused on people? If it's not, then part of defining that transformation, right, is to say, we actually need to change these impacts and these behaviors, and let's go track them. Okay? So again, if I understood the question correctly, it's what are the metrics of an agile transformation? It depends on what you're transforming, right? So if I'm transforming myself to be more athletic, well, in what dimension? Is it speed? Is it endurance? What am I actually trying to change, right? And whatever you're trying to change, measure that. Now, let's talk external. External is actually easier. It's, are you satisfying and delighting your customer, right? Ask them, right? And many customers will tell you, given the right questions, they'll actually tell you, right? but we have to learn how to listen to customers. That's the hard part. Actually, just sending surveys or looking at metrics may not give you the insights that you need. Learning how to understand what resonates and what doesn't resonate. And I think, honestly, an NPS is a great measure overall. I don't know if people are familiar with NPS or not, Net Promoter Score, but it really puts a lot of things in the equation of, will these people recommend you, right? Will they stand up for you? The other equation I'll give you, and I love this one, is trust, right? So look up the trust equation. It's basically this notion of credibility plus reliability plus intimacy divided by self-interest, right? And so you can actually create measures for each one of this and measure how much your customer trusts you, right? Those are things I'll let you think about, but yeah, those are the answers.
Excelente. Y la siguiente pregunta sería, entonces esas
Oh, I understood.
métricas...
Excelente. I got that one. I got that.
Maravilloso. ¿Esas métricas evolucionan? Esas que no hablas, ¿cada cuánto recomendarías tú preguntarnos si seguimos midiendo lo que genera valor o cada cuánto pudiéramos ver si hay que cambiar eso que medimos?
Yeah, great question. So metrics, team, should be associated with your strategy. Okay, so strategy is, okay, so take a step back. Vision. Your company needs to have a vision. Your transformation needs to have a vision. Vision is very important because vision tells you where you're going. Okay, once you have a vision, then you develop a strategy. The strategy is, okay, I want to go there. I have A, B, or C. I'm going to choose B as my path. Great. So along this path, that's what we talk about. You have, I'm going to reach my vision by changing, by impacting these things, right? And by changing these behaviors. So great. The moment you change your strategy, you should change your metrics because now I am picking a different path, right? Now I'm talking about the internal metrics, right? So now if I want to work on something different, then I need to change that. Also externally, while NPS is more of a generic score or a generic metric, I believe also externally, what impacts are you trying to do? For example, player engagement is a really important strategy and impact that we have at Riot. We want our players engaged. Player trust is another one. So we measure those things. We measure player engagement and player trust. Let's just say that suddenly engagement doesn't become an important thing for us. We won't measure it, but something else will become important and we measure that. Measure what matters. Measure what is important to you. And do not add too many measures because it gets confusing.
Gracias.
Excelente.
Excelente. Buenísimo. Aquí tengo una pregunta que me gusta mucho porque tiene que ver con la historia que Ahmed acaba de contar, de Daniel Maturana. ¿Cómo enfrentaron los riesgos en entrar en el medio musical para este proyecto de KDA?
So, we didn't enter the music business with KDA. That was the example I was talking about at the end. We entered the music business 6 years ago, right? So that goes back to the craft excellence and growth mindset. We're good, right? You guys can still hear me? Yes? Okay, great. So we entered the business 6 years ago. And that's a really good question because here's the thing. You sometimes need to make these bets. And let me put it this way. Not everything you do has to be linked to a roadmap and a KPI and a ROI and a return on investment and this and that. No, you need to experiment because one day there will come an opportunity where you're like, oh, I learned this before, I can do it now, right? But if everything we do is meticulously, and this is why I say you have to unleash the passion of your employees and give them room and space to try things, because that's how this is going to happen. Guys, we're a game company. We were never into music. But 6 years ago, one of our employees was passionate about music and said, what do you guys think? Should I try a music project? It's like, go for it. Why not? Right? We'll see how it goes. And it's giving room and space. And I get it. In a corporation, it's like, what do you mean? No, you have a role, you have a job, you have this, you have deliverables, you have accountabilities, roles and responsibilities, and right? No, wait a minute. If it's in delight of the player, experiment, try things out. So we didn't go into the music business 8 months before KDA launched. We got into the music business 8 years or 6 years before KDA launched. And so we had 6 years of learning, right, to help us take this move and say, you know what? We know how to engage artists. We know how to engage music labels. And by the way, we still did many mistakes. The year after that, we learned a lot and we did much better. That's how it is, right? And that goes back to the growth mindset. We're not afraid to try things and learn.
Absolutamente. Ahora César Mejía nos habla de si estuvieras al inicio de toda esa historia, ¿qué harías diferente?
Start of which journey? I have many journeys.
Al inicio de tu compañía de Riot, si estuvieran en esta transformación de Riot, el primer día en Riot y tu historia ahí, ¿qué harías distinto?
So when I joined Riot, what would I have done differently? Great question. I don't know if I would have done anything different, but I wish I would have met more people outside of my core organization, so that what we were talking about earlier, the way Riot was 6 years ago, it was actually very siloed, not because of bureaucracy, but because of the startup mode we were in. So, this group, like, run at light speed and go do your thing. But we really had separate entities. And I was one of them. And I had my, 120 people that I was focused on and this and that. I wish I would have branched out and started earlier, breaking those silos. That would be one thing I would have done differently.
Pregunta de Adriana Navas, pero primero voy a preguntarle a Ahmed. Ahmed, in English, do you have any shareholders at Riot Games?
We are actually owned by Tencent, which is a publicly traded company in China. So it's publicly traded in China, and we have a board and governance, and we have.
Okay.
I want to say all the complexities.
Buenísimo.
Yeah.
Entonces, Ahmed, con el hecho de que tienen accionistas, con la evolución de la empresa, ¿qué dicen hoy los accionistas en esa evolución?
They love it. They really love it, and I'll tell you why. So it's a really good question. And I'll tell you two things. One is, I think our shareholders really love what we do because we're authentic to our purpose from day one, right? We have not veered away from being player focused and player centric. From day one, we said, we're going to make the long-term bets. We're going to focus on trust. And trust is a very long strategy, by the way, right? It takes time to build trust. And there was a time, so I want you to understand, League of Legends is a 10-year-old game. There are very few games in the history of gaming that have lived to be 10 years old. and still have over 100 million active monthly players. Okay. Now, for 10 years, we had one game. So in 2017-18, League was going through a little bit of a dip. And even then, our shareholders were like, are you guys good? You're okay? We're like, yeah, we're making bets. We're making long-term bets. And that's why I was talking about the board earlier. It's trust. It's trust in these long-term bets. Some bets took 3 to 5 years, but now they're paying off, right? And so in the last year, we launched 3 new games, right? And in 10 years, we launched 1 game. So these bets were coming into fruition. But again, you can see shareholders and a board could easily say, no, enough is enough. We're done. Let's pivot. Let's move. That's why I was talking about business agility requires that alignment with whatever governance structure you have. And I'll tell you this, take Tesla as an example, right? Tesla is a publicly traded company in America, and Elon Musk, the CEO, went up very loud and clear and said, I don't care about the shareholders. I'm going to do what's right for the company and for the customer. And a lot of people are like, but then it's one of the fastest growing stocks, right? Why? Because he's doing the right thing. He's managing for the customer, right? Not for the short term up and down of the market or shareholder. So anyway, long story. You pressed the big button for me there.
No, pero es fantástico escuchar tu complemento a cada pregunta porque de seguro nos da mucha información que las personas que están aquí pueden tomar para sus propios procesos. Así que, por favor, extiéndete y compleméntanos esta información. Aunque te quiero decir, las preguntas siguen y siguen creciendo. Ahora, Luis Escobar nos hace 2 preguntas que las quiero unir porque habla un poco de la estructura, siento yo. Y es, ¿existe un líder de Business Agility en Riot Games? Una. Y la segunda sería, ¿hay un chapter de líderes que lleva todo el modelo dentro de la organización o cómo es ese ejercicio? ¿Hay agentes de cambio, diseminadores de mindset ágiles? ¿Hay algunas personas encargadas de seguir permeando la cultura en la organización?
Yes and yes. So I am the head of business agility at Riot Games. So this is my job. Let's talk about the second question. Who fosters this? Who owns it? Everyone. Everyone. So I'll tell you this. When, for example, 2.5, 3 years ago, my team, came up with a new way of doing strategy that is more agile, right? The first person I said we must train was the CEO. All right. And I said, you know what? If we're going to go around and train our senior leaders on this new way of doing strategy and this, you have to be the first person to attend this 2-day class. Now, most people will be like, wait a minute, your CEO is going to attend a 2-day class? Yes. And he did, right? Why? Because no one human can be the evangelist for an entire organization, big or small it may be, right? You want everyone to understand and evangelize, understand and be able to reinforce. Because here's the thing, guys. You will have to, okay, let me put it this way. For a brand in marketing, for a brand to be recognized, you must hear it 17 times, at least 17 times to recognize a brand. Now, for people to absorb a mindset shift and a strategy, how many times do you think you need to tell them? It's not once. It's not even 17. It's many, 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 many times. And so if, let's say, I'm the evangelist for Agile and agility, and even if I have an army of like 50, 60 people, no, it won't work, right? Because I need all the senior leaders, not just to understand it, but to talk about it, to use it. Because here's what happened. I'll continue the story of the strategy. When the CEO took the class, we were talking about the difference. So we used to strategize and do things in a certain way, and then we moved to this outcome-based strategy. He went out and started telling his direct reports, where's your outcomes? And people were like, what do you mean, where's my outcomes? This is new language. And he's like, go take the class, right? And so suddenly you see, I'm now not trying to go and knock on people's doors like, please take the strategy class, please take the strategy class because we're going to change. No, people were knocking on our doors like, I need to submit the new strategy and my boss wants it in this way and I don't know what it means, right? And so the shift here, and the thing I want to invite you to think about is change does come from the top and the bottom. So don't forget the top, right? The top is actually really, really, really important. And so in general at Riot, we focus on all senior leaders, all 200 plus of our senior leaders. We invest a lot of time with them, right? They need to understand the strategy. They need to understand the mindset. We train people on Agile as part of onboarding and orientation, right? Let's just get that out of the way. So this mindset that we're talking about is introduced to everyone, yet it needs to be emphasized and mentored and coached day in and day out, because people are people and I love people, right? They will forget, they will go back to old habits. And we as change agents have to be patient, and we have to truly love the journey that people are on, not get frustrated at it, because we're trying to change people. You know what? Process change is easy, guys. Let's easily change a process, but you're not changing a process. You're changing people, humans that have fears and hopes and aspirations and all that kind of stuff. So be gentle, be compassionate, be empathetic. And it's hard, and don't get frustrated.
Me parece que probablemente la próxima pregunta un poco entra en cómo se maneja eso. Básicamente, ¿cómo manejar la expectativa de los directivos? Porque muchas veces piensan que la transformación es un proyecto. Piensan que el proyecto va a terminar en un año. Piensan que es implementar un marco. ¿Cómo manejar esas expectativas?
Educate them. I mean, there's really no other answer. You have to educate them. And I'll tell you this, I have seen so we have, as humans, as change agents, as wherever you are in the organization asking this question, you have energy. So I've seen that energy being invested downward a lot. So I will teach my teams, I will teach this, I will do this, I will champion Agile in my team. Invest it upward. Right? Because educating upward is actually really, really, really important and really, really, really hard. Now, I think you have we're living in an amazing time right now where, because of a lot of the challenges of COVID and disruption and global disruption, it's don't waste a crisis. They say that, like, don't waste it, like, educate upward. And yes, transformation is not a project at all, right? It is a shift in identity, right? It is, and again, a project can be changing a process, but a transformation is a new iteration of the company. It's a new iteration of the company, right? And I want you to think about it like that, because it takes time. It takes time to iterate a company of whatever size it may be, right? And again, you have to educate upward, because the product owner, whoever's leading the company, the CEO or the board, right, need to be on board with this new iteration. You cannot force it on them. So I think the only way is to educate. And sometimes you're not high enough in the organization to educate. So educate your boss that will need to educate his or her boss, right? It's just, I wish there was an easier way. There isn't, right? But also, find opportunities, right? find opportunities for them to talk to other CEOs or other executives from more agile companies. They need to sometimes know what I like to call the art of the possible. They need to know that it is possible. They need stories. Go on the Business Agility Institute's website and find a case study about a similar company and send it to your boss. They need to know that because guys, let's be honest here. It's a huge risk on a CEO to change a company. It's a big risk. And you're asking them to risk everything for something that is like, what? I don't understand it. How is it going to work? For the past 20, 30 years of my career, I've run an organization this way. And now you want me to run it this way? How? Why should I trust you? I don't know how it works. So be compassionate. But you have to educate. You have to educate.
Sí, gracias por
It's
eso,
hard,
porque
guys. It's hard. I know.
sí. Yo hablo un poco de, no hay un botón para cambiar el mindset, no es turn off, es todo un proceso. Y creo que en Latinoamérica aún estamos viviendo la agilidad como un proyecto, como tú lo decías, con una fecha de inicio y una fecha de fin, y ha iniciado por tecnología. Luego nos han invitado a que ser ágiles es implementar un marco de trabajo, y no hay que desconocer el gran trabajo que han hecho las compañías al hacer esto, al iniciar con un marco y atreverse a experimentar, pero está costando mucho hacer ese cambio de entender qué es Business Agility, porque pareciera que Business Agility se está entendiendo en Latinoamérica como hacer Scrum en todas las áreas de negocio, como tener Kanban en todas las áreas de negocio, y así con varias frameworks. Entonces, ¿qué consejo nos darías tú en Latinoamérica y a las personas? Aquí hay muchas personas conectadas de la comunidad que estamos liderando conversaciones con muchas personas relevantes de las organizaciones. ¿Cómo podemos empezar a entender un poco mejor el Business Agility sin desconocer? Porque nuevamente ahora hay una medio pelea que entonces lo que han hecho hasta ahora no servía, y yo apuesto a que sí, sirve mucho, pero ahora, ¿cuál es el paso siguiente? ¿Qué nos aconsejarías tú?
So a couple of things come to mind. One is, I think what you said, celebrate where we are, right? Let's not underlook that. Like many organizations, even as you were talking, yes, agile is not a button. I agree. And I want to acknowledge that many people maybe on this call have made some significant changes in companies. Great job. Now, what do you do with that, right? Couple of things I want you to realize, that what you've created is this very precious thing surrounded by an organization that may not still accept it, right? And so you may think, we got this right, they don't. That's a really, it's a negative mindset to approach the journey ahead of you around business agility. The journey of business agility is about partnership. It's about co-creation with every part of the organization. I'll tell you a personal story. Our HR department was one of the departments that I just like couldn't work with, and it was like this black box. You gotta invest the time in it. And now we're best friends, right? But initially, I had the mindset, I'll be honest with you guys, I had the mindset of, it's them. They're hindering our agility. They're doing this, they're doing that. It's easy to point fingers, right? But it's really hard to actually roll up your sleeve. And for the past 3 or 4 months, I've been working with them, and I'm like, okay, let's work on your strategy together to enable more agility in the organization. And now I am so much more empathetic, but I've also done a lot of education, right? So here's the thing. The number one advice I'll give change agents, people, is don't take the us, them mindset. And it's easy, by the way. Us, the agile people, them, the leaders, the HR people, the finance people. It's easy. Take an us mindset, take a one team mindset, and start building partnerships and meet them where they are. Meet them where they are. 3 years ago, my team, myself and my team, we were given the responsibility of redoing our strategic forecasting and planning process. I had to work with finance. All right. And did I like working with finance initially? No. But I got to know the people. I got to understand their challenges. We came up with creative solutions together. We co-created. Business agility is not about here's a framework. And I see a lot of the questions, at least what I can read in English. Do we take SAFe? Do we take DAD? Do we take less? Take all of them or take none of them, right? It doesn't matter, honestly. Those are mere guidances. But what you actually have to create in your organization is extremely customized to your organization. It's based on where your organization is. And what I mean by that is where people are, right? Your CFO are they ready for, portfolio and lean value streams? Probably not. Then don't do it, right? It's pretty simple. Don't do it. Because guess what? You can't force this, but take it step by step. So all these frameworks, I look at them and I say, go learn them. Great. Don't implement them as is. Why? You will break your organization if you try to implement them as is. But understand, where is the organization? Oh, it's ready for this? Let's go do it. It's not ready for it? Educate, collaborate, co-create, figure out what's right for your organization. And that's hard, guys. For all the coaches out there, for all the change agents out there, for all the executives out there, this is hard work. And it will take a toll on you personally. But I call this high touch work. You gotta spend the time with people so it can work. So
Buenísimo. He estado tratando de buscar porque hay bastantes preguntas que se medio repiten. Veo una que me parece interesante en base a lo que estaba comentando Ahmed. Haileen Goodson pregunta, ¿cómo llevan la gestión del cambio en la compañía en todos los niveles de la organización?
it's hard, guys. It's really hard. And change management is one of those things that it's a weak muscle for us. So I won't tell you we have that under control at all. Actually, we've failed in a couple of big changes. But it's something that because it's one of our weak muscles, that's why we're doubling down on it. And so, number one, we set some expectations. So to all of Riot, we set expectations that every year there will be change. Okay. Now, change in what? We don't know. But every year around March, we introduce some change. So that's really important to set expectations at an organizational level. So every March, we gather the entire company together, right? And we sit them down and we say, okay, here's our strategy for this year, and here's what we're changing. Okay. So it's sort of become a little bit of a habit that people understand that things won't remain the same all the time. We will have changes. We will move things. And we almost wanted to do it similar to, like, for those familiar with iterations, right? Similar to, like, we know that there will be change coming up in the next iteration. Yeah, the organization needs to know that things will not stay the way they are. So we set that expectation pretty clearly. And I would say that plus just the efforts we're doing, we're hiring, people that have that expertise, but really with the culture fit that we have, we're investing in a lot more co-creation. Back to the point we talked about, we're engaging a lot more people. So the big part of change management that I see is really important is not here's the change, how do we roll it out? No. Here's the impact we want to have. How do we engage people in figuring out how to do it? That's the part, that's the agile change management. That's the empowered change management that I invite you to think more about.
Ok, hay varias preguntas que nos hablan de frameworks, tanto de equipos, conformaciones de equipos, roles, frameworks de escalado en agilidad. ¿Nos pudieras hablar un poco respecto a esto? ¿Cómo lo trabajan hoy? ¿Qué información nos puedes compartir de esto?
Yeah. So at Riot, we don't use a framework. We actually don't even have a single process across the board. We are really, we really believe that it's up to every team and organization to figure out what works for them. Because think about it, we have esports, we have publishing, we have game development, we have, we have different part animation, right? They're all agile, but they have very different processes. So they're agile not in the way of Scrum or extreme programming or safe or this or that. They're not that. They are customer centric. They experiment. They reflect on how to make work better, and they continuously improve, and they continuously deliver value to their customer. Those are the principles, right? And then how they actually work, totally up to them. Why? Because it depends. And so I've been very vocal about how I feel about frameworks. They are great starting points and nothing more than that, right? But we get too attached to those starting points. It's like me telling you, here's a recipe on how to cook. Give me a famous dish over there. Tell me a famous meal over there. Come on, someone. What
En
is it?
Colombia,
Yeah.
ajiaco. Ajiaco es una sopa.
Okay. Ajiaco. All right. Great. That just made me hungry. Okay. Let's say I give you a recipe, and maybe I won't pronounce this right, to make ajiaco. Okay. So I give you a recipe to make that. And you learn how to make it from the first time. The recipe, you try it, you learn it. Great. But if you think that the only way to make ajiaco is that recipe, you're wrong. Because I'm sure so many different mothers and grandmothers across Colombia have figured out different variations of it. That's agility, right? And that's what frameworks are. Frameworks are your first recipe, right? To learn about something. But then agility comes when you make it work for you and your team and your family and your organization. That's what agility is, not following the recipe, right? So that's something really, really important to think about. It's not about the recipe, folks. It's about learning it through the recipe, but then making your own ajiaco because it fits what your taste, your family, your particular interests. And again, going back to agility, it fits your organization, it fits your people, it fits your structure, it fits you. And that's my problem with a lot of these frameworks, right? That people don't learn it as a recipe. People learn it as the recipe. It must be done this way. But look at the interesting complication here. I'm telling you, I want you to be flexible, but the only way to be flexible is to follow this process. That's impossible. Is that close to impossible? I don't know, whatever language that was. But that is just ridiculous. By me telling you to be agile, you have to follow this way of working. No. To be agile, you have to change this. You have to change the way you think about work, and then you'll figure out how to work.
Ahmed, en tu ejemplo con Riot Games, hablaste de de experimentar, de encontrar oportunidades para probar nuestras nuevas cosas. César Castillejos Cabrera pregunta, ¿Qué arquitectura se creó en la organización para darle oportunidad a todas las personas dentro de la compañía de proponer nuevas ideas? ¿Cómo Riot Game abrió esa oportunidad para personas dar nuevas ideas?
Yeah. It's not an architecture, it's a culture. It's very important. It's not an architecture, it's not a system, it's a culture. It's a culture that we built and we continue to build. And as we grow, it's something we're fighting to keep, right? For people, for everyone to know that their voice is heard, may not be, taken every time, or else it would be chaos. But your voice is heard. You have a way to suggest things. Actually, let me put it this way. At the highest level of leadership, we understand that this company, Riot, will only be successful if people have a way to express their ideas, because we know, and this is the part, again, educating executives, we know that the best ideas will not come from us. It will come from someone in the organization we've never heard of. So we're day in and day out trying to understand, how do we build these systems? Now, that's why I said it's a culture. Now, let me tell you some of the things we do. The CEO and our C-level suite have random lunches with people every week for the past years. Random, we call them the random fives, right? So random lunch with 5 random people at Riot. Almost, it's been years that's been going on. We have, I guess, hackathons, right? Where people can pitch ideas. And actually, we dedicate days to go build those ideas. And then we take those ideas and we can build off of them. Some of the things we've shipped to players have been hackathon ideas in the first place. We have processes in place for anyone to build a pitch and come formally pitch a new game idea to our R&D department. We have these systems, but these systems exist because we have a culture. And the culture exists because we have leaders that believe in that. Now, you may say, wait a minute, a lot of your answers are about leadership. Yes, they are. Leadership is really, really important, right? Really important. And that's why you, depending on where you are in the organization, you can affect change. You are a leader of something. You can affect change there. But if you want change at scale, educate up and engage the wider leadership group.
Ok, hay muchas más preguntas. Ay, se me perdió el nombre. José nos ha pedido específicamente hacer su pregunta. José Goncalves, de verdad, él quiere saber esto. Dijiste, Ahmed, que no hay atajos. ¿Cómo se equilibra la velocidad que la organización necesita tener en términos de una transformación de agilidad y la velocidad a la que realmente va, que usualmente tiende a ser más lenta? ¿Cómo harías tú ese equilibrio?
So if I understand the question, it's, we want the transformation to be faster, but the organization, we want the benefits of agility, so we need the transformation to happen fast, but the organization as a whole moves slowly. ¿No?
Tal vez no es que para hacer una transformación, no queremos hacer la transformación más rápida, pero reconocemos que una transformación ágil busca incorporar un componente de velocidad en los procesos y las operaciones, pero puede que la organización vaya a un ritmo muy distinto al que la transformación espera. ¿Cómo llevarlos, cómo traerlos o cómo balancearlo?
I mean, if I understand the question correctly, you don't balance it. You meet them where they are and you take them on the journey. Like, this is not a fight between the transformation and the organization, right? yes, the transformation wants more speed from the organization. This is, again, I'll use sports. I want to be a faster runner. I want that, but I'm not that. So what do? It's not a tension. That is the transformation. And like I said, maybe I'm misunderstanding the question. But I'm looking at the question here. You said there are no
No, en
shortcuts.
este momento sí, es eso que estás diciendo.
Yeah. So there are no shortcuts. There are no. Yes, but there are things that can help accelerate. Okay, so there's no shortcuts, but there are things that can help accelerate. So let's go back to sports. I'm trying to lose weight and be more fit and. Is there a shortcut? No. I have to do the work, right? But are there things that can accelerate that? Yes. I can hire a really good coach, right? I can start, investing in my nutrition. I can do this. I can educate myself on how the body works. I can do these things to accelerate. One of the things to accelerate is gaining senior level buy-in. That can accelerate a lot of things, right? So, and not just buy-in. I hate that word, buy-in, but it's really commitment, and commitment to specific things, right? Those are things that can accelerate the transformation. But the speed of, like, yes, agile requires things to move fast. Yeah, but that's the problem, that most organizations aren't fast. But why aren't they fast? They're not fast because there's fear of decision making, right? There's a lack of clarity around roles and responsibilities in many organizations. People don't even know who makes the decision sometimes. There's bureaucracy. There's processes for the sake of processes, right? There's all these things that make the organization slow. But how do you change them? The transformation is not going to magically change all this. You got to convince the people that own these processes to be open to changing these processes, which means you have to change the people first, right? And that's why I said that takes time, and nothing will replace it. But again, things can accelerate it. Your focus on executive level education and understanding and coaching and commitment and all those things can help it, right? A crisis can help it, right? An opportunity can help it. So finding these accelerators, but there's no shortcut. Jose, I hope I answered your question, since you were that adamant about asking it. If I didn't,
Sí.
hopefully, yeah. He's
Y por
happy?
favor, déjanos saber, eso ya nos dijo, muchas gracias, sí. Lo logramos.
Oh, buenísimo. Mira, Ahmed, una pregunta ahora. Nosotros, bueno, Riot Game de alguna manera todavía tiene una base tecnológica, pero Pedro Valencia pregunta, para entidades que no son de base tecnológica y el concepto de business agility, vamos a decir, una empresa de venta de insumos médicos o otro tipo de organización que no tiene una base tecnológica, ¿cómo iniciar una transformación ágil? ¿Cómo adoptar un modelo ágil? ¿Dónde empezarían esas organizaciones?
Yeah. So that's why I started the way I started. I do believe every organization has the ability to be more agile. A restaurant, a gym, a medical supply company, every entity. Because if agile is understood as being flexible and moving at the speed necessary to delight your customer, then every organization can be agile, right? So the question becomes, who is your customer as a medical supplies company? Okay, so you have a customer base. What do they need? How do you delight them, right? How do you make their life better? What is your mission towards them? Where are you falling short right now? Are you responding to change in their world? Are you falling behind? Are you, and this is really important, are you creating a new world for them that they didn't even know existed? And this is so important, because being customer-centric is not, and please, I hope everyone hears this, it's not about responding just to customer needs. Customer, tell me what you want, I'll go do it. Customer, tell me what you want, I'll go do it. That's not customer centricity. Customer centricity is understanding the customer so deeply that you can create a new world for them that they never even knew could exist. So, as a medical supplies company, what does that mean for you? I'm not in that business. I have no idea, but you are. And you can sit down and say, wow, what if we can do this and this and this and this? Great. That's your vision. Okay. Now, if that's my vision, where's my gap? That's my transformation. I need to be able to do these things that I can't do today. Great. That becomes your transformation mission, right? Those are the things that you need to change for your transformation, right? And agility, go back to the muscles we were talking about. Those are not based on technology. One team. I've been in medical companies. They don't act like one team. Everyone is based on their goals, their targets, their this, their that, right? Let's build the one team mindset. Strategic agility. Maybe you have it, maybe you don't. People management. Are you truly empowering people? That's why I wanted to introduce you to that model, the business agility model, because it's way more than portfolio management and iterating 2 weeks and shipping software. No. Right? It's about growth mindset. It's about experimentation. What have you always wanted to experiment with in your business operations for your customer? That's the mindset, right? And so every company can do it. Every restaurant, every whatever company you can think about, right? But I really think it's a great question. Technology is one sector of companies. It's where Agile was born, so people can relate to it. But oh my God, I'll tell you this: I have a nonprofit that helps children with education, right? And we implemented a lot of agility in that, and it has zero technology, right? But it was about a mindset. So we sat down, we asked the customer, who are 8, 9, 10-year-old kids, what do you want? What does success look for you? That's not a traditional school system. A school system says, I know what you need to learn. That's similar to a transactional relationship. Same way, right? So the concepts of agility are very, very powerful. And this is why I love talking about business agility, because it's not just about let's deliver software every 2 weeks, blah, blah, blah. No, it's about truly creating a customer-centric culture that can delight the customers in ways they never dreamt of.
Ok, hemos estado, de verdad que hay muchas, pero muchas enseñanzas en todo esto, tanto la historia como las preguntas nos han dejado más preguntas, lo cual es bueno, creo yo, porque al tener que irnos a pensar en todo esto que hemos escuchado hoy, yo creo que van a salir unas respuestas bien interesantes para la realidad y el contexto de cada uno, porque es importante reconocer que Latinoamérica tiene un contexto, Estados Unidos otro, Europa otro,
100%.
y no se trata, así como hablamos de que no hay una receta para el ajiaco, tampoco estamos buscando tener una sola receta, pero hay tantos insights en esta charla, Ahmed, que de verdad muchísimas gracias. Quisiéramos cerrar con esta pregunta, sabemos que quedan varias, pero sentimos un poco que han estado cubiertas a lo largo de tu charla. Eileen Goodson nos pregunta, ¿cuáles son las grandes lecciones aprendidas en este proceso de Business Agility para ti? En el de Riot Games.
The biggest lesson in this whole agile journey of mine and at Riot is it's all about the people. And we fail to understand that many times. And so I think many people get into the doing of agile very quickly, and the processes and the coaching and the sticky notes and this and that, and forget that it's all about the people. It really is. And so when I look back, and I say that because the most agile part of any organization, or the least agile part of any organization, is its people. Not the processes, not the strategy, not the structure, the people. And leaders are people, and people are people, and employees are people. And understanding that you're dealing with people that have feelings, that have good days and bad days, that have families, that have challenges, that have fears and hopes. It's the game. It's the game. If you want to play the game, you have to understand that it's about people. And education is one of the most powerful ways to change how people think, right? And to transform people. It's by education. And I think education is hard. And I'm not talking about just a training. A training is part of a journey to educate and to build competency, right? And so get on those journeys, start learning. I know we have IC Agile here, and like they have spent years, and we have spent years developing these learning journeys, because it's about people. It's about changing the way people think. And it's hard, guys. It's really, really hard. But I'll tell you this. I love it. I love it because knowing that I'm doing this not because of revenue or profit, but because I'm going to make someone's life better. We're going to make people happier. We're going to change people's lives. It's worth it. If that's the impact you have before you leave this earth, it's worth it. That was deep, right? That was really deep. Too deep.
Wow.
Fue el cierre perfecto, siento yo. Ahmed, nuevamente, muchas gracias. Quisiéramos hacerte muchas más preguntas, porque de seguro hay mucha más información por compartir. Sí nos gustaría, y para todos los que aún se mantienen en línea y para todas las personas que se registraron, vamos a enviar a su correo electrónico la grabación y cuéntanos.
Can I say one more thing?
Claro.
I just noticed really quickly through the questions that there are a number of league players out there, and I just want to take a moment and thank them. Of course, I have to. I wouldn't be here. Riot wouldn't be here without you guys. So thank you, genuinely thank you for trusting us with your time, and for investing your time in League. And we love you, and we're here for you. So thank you.
Excelente, excelente, claro que sí. Bueno, recuerden que les vamos a enviar a su correo electrónico esta información. No sé, había una pregunta relacionada, Ahmed, si hay alguna parte en donde las personas puedan seguir profundizando en las experiencias desde agilidad de Riot, si hay algún blog, si tú tienes un blog, una página, un libro en donde ellos puedan seguir entrando a profundizar en todo esto que hemos conversado hoy.
So I have a website, but I have not probably updated it in years. But go to ahmedsidky.com, just my name. And there's a whole set of videos there about Agile. And it's on my to-do list. I will start a new video series soon, talking more about business agility. So I believe I have a YouTube channel. I haven't invested too much in this, but I think subscribe to it or something. And then I am soon, I'm negotiating with my wife and family the time necessary, but I want to talk more to the world about business agility. So coming soon.
Perfecto, y nosotros seguiremos también en esta alianza con Easy Agile. Dale, Susana.
Y posiblemente también, ojalá ya cuando la pandemia baje un poco, estaremos viajando con IC Agile a Latinoamérica y ayudando un poco con esta parte de la educación. Sí, definitivamente.
Excelente, los esperamos, y ustedes saben que Latinoamérica, Colombia, es su casa. Tú también, Ahmed, súper bienvenido, Bogotá, a que comas ajiaco, a que pruebes el ajiaco.
Para la barriguita.
Nosotros, recuerden, tenemos otro evento que dará continuidad a lo que escucharon hoy. Si quieren escuchar, nosotros hemos tratado de construir este evento con dos líneas, o lo hemos construido así. Van a escuchar una historia empresarial y luego van a escuchar una parte más conceptual que nos va a ayudar a profundizar en los cómo. Hoy escuchamos el para qué, el por qué, el qué y el cómo y algunos otros mecanismos los escucharemos en 8 días, misma hora. Así que no se lo pierdan. Vamos a tener a Shane Hasty hablándonos de eso. No sé, Susana, si nos quieras profundizar un poco acerca de él.
Sí, buenísimo, sí. Entonces Shane va a ser nuestro presentador para la semana que viene. Y como dijo Sandra, básicamente oímos la historia de Ahmed, una historia muy, toda inspirativa, pero definitivamente ahora que oímos esta historia, ¿cómo podemos aplicar algunas cosas para poder comenzar o seguir la jornada o el camino que ustedes están tomando en sus propias organizaciones? Entonces esperamos que en esta presentación podamos ayudarlos un poco con eso, para tener por lo menos unos próximos pasos.
Excelente. Recibirán entonces a su correo este webinar, le está grabado, estará en nuestro canal de YouTube. Hemos circulado en nuestras redes tanto de IC Agile como de Agility Changes para que nos sigan y también recibirán las de Ahmed con próxima actualización en el correo que recibirán pronto para que sigan profundizando en sus conocimientos de agilidad. Conéctense con historias reales de agilidad, compártanlo con aquellas personas que ustedes consideran que es de interés, porque la educación es justo eso, compartirlo, saber que más personas puedan llegar aquí. Entonces, de verdad que nuevamente un placer haberte tenido aquí, Ahmed. Susana también, muchas gracias por hacer que IC Agile nos haya permitido tener este espacio para Latinoamérica. Y recuerden, queremos que cada vez más personas de habla hispana logren contactar a personas o logren llegar a personas con mucho conocimiento, experiencia y que nos hablen de sus experiencias. Estamos prontos a publicar también si en noviembre tendremos evento, así que síganos y estén pendientes de nosotros. Muchísimas gracias para todos y hemos acabado muy puntuales, 8 en punto. Ahmed, ¿nos regalas un segundo? Vamos cerrando la sala y así cerramos nosotros. Gracias. Y paramos la